Oril sat alone during lunch, eating whatever food she absent-mindedly placed on her tray. She wanted to ask Ae if he would like to eat with her, but as soon as class ended and lunch began, he rapidly walked out the class without even saying anything to her. And from there, she lost him in the crowd despite his uniform making him stand out, normally. She thought back on her experience with him. In just one day and night, he managed to leave a lasting impression on her. From his constant poker face and emotionless voice he constantly spoke in, as well as his brazen disconcern with privacy, though she didn't know if it was unique to just Ae, or if other humans acted like him. To be fair, she didn't know what she was expecting. She tried looking up humans on the data connection, but what results came up were few and in between. Even so, most information she found on humans were outright insane to be true. Their stamina, their intelligence, their bone density. Okay, the bone density one was probably true ever since she saw how packed with muscle Ae was. Her thoughts were shifted to her surroundings as she heard an unfamiliar noise. Someone sitting in front of her. "Hey, is it true that humans never need to sleep?" said an unfamiliar face of some guy she never even met, or probably wasn't even in her classroom. "Hey, what?" "No," Oril said, confused, but by answering his question she managed to get a smile. "The name's Hawkins. I'm with the school's gossip and information outlet, and right now we're quite interested in the human," Hawkins said while staring at her. "And why are you taking to me? His name's Ae, by the way," she asked, curious, though she already knew why. "Why, you're his roommate after all. I'll tell you what, why don't you come to the media center after classes and we could have a nice interview, huh?" Hawkins said, beaming. She was in deep thought from that offer. She wanted to accept right there and then, since that would guarantee she would get popular, or at least famous in school, though she wanted to know what Ae thought about it before she accepted. Since she guessed, they would probably be talking mainly about him. I'll think about it," she said, and Hawkins got up from the table. "All righty. I'll give you time. I'll be expecting you, though," he said in a joyous tone before scurrying away. Now she sat there, alone, again. However, unknown to her, more ears were listening in than she knew. Oril decided to spend the remaining of lunch searching for Ae. Perhaps he was lost? It would explain why he was gone for so long, right? Or maybe he just didn't want to eat with her. No, why wouldn't he? They were friends after all, right? Worry started to fill her gut as she thought about reasons why he had went missing. She wanted to call him a friend so bad, but all reasoning point towards just roommates. After all, they literally just met yesterday. No, they were friends. Help her during the pop quiz, that's what a friend would do. Unless he just took pity on her. As she walked around, Oril slowly began losing hope on finding him as the minutes ticked by. It wouldn't have been hard finding him since he wore that black uniform that made him stand out like a white claw. But yet, she wasn't able to. She'll still see him in class, though. Something felt off. Some primal sense built into her centuries ago made her feathers stick out on end. Looking up, she could see she was the only student in the hallway, the previously packed scene now a mere wasteland. Oril. Suddenly, Oril swiftly turned around at an appendage being placed firmly on her shoulder, and she let out a little squeak despite herself. However, her worry and fear quickly subsided as the familiar appearance of Ae stood before her, probably the reason for the hallway's impromptu evacuation, carrying a rectangular plastic container. Box. "Ae! Ah, you scared me," she said, relief showing on her face as her heartbeat returned to normal. "My deepest apologies, Oril. Where does one usually eat here?" Ae asked while looking around behind her. We could eat at the library. We just have to stay quiet and not make a mess," Oril said hopefully. "I would like that," he said, now looking directly at her. Lead the way." As Oril led the way, her brain continued to swim with questions and thoughts. Though she was calmed at the notion Ae would still go to her, she still questioned whether or not they counted as real friends. "So, where have you been?" Oril asked, attempting to start a conversation. "I had unfinished business," Ae said before going quiet once more. "I was worried, you know, Thought you got lost," she said, a nervous smile forming as she waited for a response. "No need to worry about me. I assure you I am quite capable of taking care of myself." Ae gave his answer without a hint of hesitation or emotion. For the rest of the trip they continued in silence. They probably burnt out a good chunk of their 2-hour lunch period on walking. But that trip finally came to an end as the pair of automatically sliding doors came into view, with the words, "Primary Library," labeled on top. Entering the library, Oril could see it was, of course, quite empty. The few students that were at the library seemed to be just there for the neural network headsets. Even the librarian looked bored out of his mind as he sat at the front desk, scrolling on his netpad. The only activity that came from the library seemed to come from the automated drones floating around silently above them. And so, she led Ae around the labyrinth of bookshelves towards her favorite spot. Then finally, they reached her spot, the back corner of the library, where absolutely zero people even thought to go. So she sat down on the floor and patted the empty area next to her, gesturing for Ae to sit. Surprisingly, he did without any second thought, before proceeding to open the plastic bag and retrieve utensils from it. "What's that?" Oril asked, the aroma coming from the bag already hitting her and, to her surprise, was quite pleasant. "Mreh." He said something in his native tongue which he didn't seem to know, didn't translate well as he took a spoonful of brown mush from the bag. Oril mimicked in confusion. "Meal ready to eat. I packed some before being sent here, reasoned it might come useful just in case. I thought humans were death worlders. You could eat chemical weapons like treats," Oril said in surprise, and Ae merely shrugged. Of all things Oril thought about Ae, a picky eater was absolutely not one of them. Perhaps he just didn't trust the food in the canteen? Most likely he didn't know where to start. She would have to introduce him to the wonders of the cafeteria food sometime. "You mentioned your species was governed by the military. How does your society work?" Oril asked while Ae continued to eat his MARA diet. "Constant war. Keep us working and patriotic," he said matter-of-factly. "And you're okay with it?" "Nah, didn't you?" Oril was genuinely surprised at his lack of emotion in his tone, despite Ae clearly showing lack of said emotion all the time. Economy's been up since production is kept running 24/7. Homelessness and unemployment is virtually zero as literally everyone has a job to do. Most importantly, we have a reason to keep going, Ae informed her, and she is sent into deep tea. "Hot. You mentioned constant war. Last I remember humanity finished their war with the Pillions." "Nice." Maybe I worded it wrong. Constant state of preparation for war seems much more accurate. Added by small interventions into small minor conflicts, keeps our people ready for a major conflict, he said before folding his now empty plastic MRIDID. "Which we are expecting. Would you mind if I ask you something, please?" Ae started and Oril tapped her claws together. "Sure. You've answered my question. I don't see why you can't ask some. Your species' bones are hollow, right? Why don't I see much of your people flying?" Ae asked, looking at her feathers and wings. "Oh, well, flight is much similar to your running. We can fly, but it's very tiring." Ae looked at her when she finished talking. Though she wasn't about to guess his true expression, she thinks he was studying her. Not being able to handle his eyes roaming her, she suggested they get back to class. "Of course," Ae agreed, and they swiftly left the library, catching the attention of the librarian and what little students were in there. The rest of the day proceeded as normal as she could think. The remaining subjects passed by like the wind since she slept through most of them. If she needed help in any subjects, she could probably ask Ae. Yeah, they were totally friends, she thought to herself, despite a feeling of doubt scratching at the back of her brain.